that we're trying to do, but we thought this might be a way too to increase effectiveness of communication and have people submit questions and try to talk about topics that people may be interested in, particularly hearing about in this format. So I hope that there's some value in this for you. Let us know what you think for sure. My door is always open. So call me, email me, set up an appointment. I'd love to hear back from you, what your thoughts are. Really appreciate constructive criticism or, anything that you want to tell me. I'm definitely open to listening. This is, we're coming out of a hard 2 years. Again, we just really want to make sure that we're communicating with everybody and letting people know the things that we can help you with. Before I get started kind of with our presentation, just some housekeeping. We received a number of questions and comments. We have an hour here today, so we're not going to be addressing all of them today. Kind of tried to pick through some of the main topics, but you're welcome to put questions in the Q&A. Again, we may not be able to get to all of them, but we will try to respond to them and post them along with this recording on our website so that you can look at the questions and answers there. And also if you didn't get or people didn't get a chance to see all the record of the presentation, they can look at the recording. And we'll also look to cover more topics at future town halls. So if this is a format that works for people, then we'll continue to do them. So I wanted to start by have the leadership team, senior leadership team, introduce themselves. So I guess we can just go maybe in alphabetical order, so which means that Anita Vasquez starts. You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anita Vasquez, and I am the Senior Director of UP Operations.
Oh, can you tell us the areas that you cover, Anita? Because you cover so many. You're muted again.
I cover payroll, benefits, employee support services, and the leaves area.
Next, we have, if my alphabet is correct, Carrie.
Morning, everybody. I'm Carrie Metters. I'm the Senior Director of Technology and Training, and I oversee technology and training, obviously, as well as fee waiver, wellness, well-being, compliance, events, all things CHRS, and things like this.
Yes, she did a great job with this too. Again, my alphabet, I believe James is next.
Hello, I'm James Lee, Senior Director of Faculty Services. I've been at SJSU since 2005, went through faculty ranks and then took this position in 2019. The areas of my purview are faculty recruitment, and evaluations of faculty, including the range elevation, annual evaluation, cumulative evaluation for lecturers, and retention, tenure, and promotion, mini review, and post-tenure review for tenure line faculty, and also additional employment for faculty.
Julie.
Hi, good morning. Julie Paysant. I'm the Senior Director over retention, employee relations, and equal opportunity. The areas I cover are recruiting, class comp, labor and employee relations, equal opportunity, meaning EHR, also whistleblower, and also involved with Title IX.
And last but not least, Rosa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rosa Coronado. I'm the Senior Director for Academic Employee Relations. I oversee academic employee relations, including the collective bargaining agreement, Unit 3, Unit 11, the I-9 and immigration processes, and I also support with faculty leaves and faculty accommodations.
Okay. So the agenda here is what we're going to try to cover today. And we're going to start out with who, what, when, where, why, and how for UP. We're going to touch on salary and compensation. That seemed to be a topic that lots of people were interested in. So put that on the agenda for sure. And then end up with some questions, however many we can answer, but also probably look at some of the questions that did come in and try to touch on those too. Okay, so let's get started. I was struck, oops, something's missing there, that slide. I was struck by, there it is. One of the questions that somebody asked was this: what is it that you do? Are you an HR department? and more about the positions and what UP does for staff and faculty members. So that struck me because I realized that perhaps some people aren't quite sure what university personnel is and what we do and who we are. So let's just start with the basics. Also want to just give some links here for places where you can find out more about us, our website, our blog. We have our newsletters archived and the link there. And by the way, the PowerPoint will be posted as well. So these links will be available for you to go into. We have a Wellbeing Wednesday newsletter as well as a Training Tuesday newsletter. They're bi-weekly, they alternate. And we have Twitter and Instagram. So those are ways that you can find out more about university personnel. Next slide, please. So who are we? Well, we are a team of about 60 San Jose State employees supporting all faculty, staff, and student employees on campus, as well as applicants for employment. And you can find out things about us from this link. Do you want to just go in there real quick, Carrie? So there's the org chart, there's the representatives, can you scroll there? Yeah, there's staff by function, there's a management team that we recently updated our little bios and pictures. So if you see us on campus, you can say hello. There's staff A to Z, there's our office locations. So this is a way to find out where we are, who we are. Slides, please. So where did university personnel start? Well, so there was human resources, obviously, on campus, and that used to be in the admin and finance division. Faculty affairs was in academic affairs. And we merged, those two areas merged in the fall of 2017 and became university personnel. Faculty affairs actually did a little bit of a split. The process piece of faculty affairs came over to university personnel. So like James was saying, works on all the processes for faculty like RTP, evaluations for sabbaticals, but the training and the Center for Faculty Development, which used to within faculty affairs as well, remains with academic affairs. So here too, you can see some of the areas that we cover, including payroll, benefits, and leaves. And this is just a partial list. When you go into staff by function, you'll see people, what they cover there. So there's quite a list there. So you can go in and find out, according to topic, who you should talk to. So when does university personnel come into play? Well, we're part of an employee's career at SJSU from the moment you apply for the job here to your last day of employment. So we are present and here to help for the various pieces of your employment journey. Where we're located on 2 locations on campus. We're in admin 242, which is where I am right now, in the admin building 2nd floor, and UPD 3rd floor. That's mostly the operations group over there in UPD 3rd floor. We are hopefully eventually moving all in one place, but we are right now split off. And you can see a little map of where we are when you go online there. I like this little map. So admin and UPD. So we're kind of opposite ends of the campus. So what is our mission? Why are we here? We're here to support employees, so faculty, staff, and student employees throughout the employment life cycle. And how do we do this? So we have to do this in compliance with the various laws, regulations, and executive orders and directives and policies that apply to the employment situation. So now we're going to talk about the policies and procedures that guide us. So what I thought it was important to let people know where the policies come from that we operate under and why we do what we do and how we do what we do. So we have to operate within the confines of federal laws and regulations and mandates. And those include, there's a lot of acronyms here. So the ACA is the Affordable Care Act. The Benefits Group is very familiar with that. The ADA, Americans with Disability Act, the Leaves Group, and the ERC Group for accommodations has to be in compliance with that. CDC is, I think people know this very well from what we've been through with COVID. So that's a federal that we have to pay attention to. And the Leaves Group is very familiar with those guidelines and guidances because we talk about what people need to do when they test positive for COVID. Do they need to quarantine? How many days? And there's other laws here like OSHA, USCIS, I-9, the work authorizations. Those federal laws guide what we do. The state of California also has laws that we have to follow. There's wage laws. By the way, we have to also keep in mind that federal, state, and local laws sometimes differ. And I think the wage laws are a really good place to talk about that, because the FLSA, which is a federal law, has a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. In California, the minimum wage is $15 an hour. And in San Jose, a local law mandates $16.20 per hour. So it just kind of shows you how things differ, and we have to keep track of that type of thing as well. But the state of California also has a California Department of Public Health, so we have to stay on top of that. Cal OSHA, that's been a big player for the COVID years. Local laws like the San Jose minimum wage law and the Santa Clara County Department of Public Health. We have Chancellor's, whoops, one more, Chancellor's Office policy.
Sorry, Joanne.
Is another area that we have to comply with. There's executive orders such as the policies on discrimination and harassment. And you should all be familiar with that because there's required training that comes out of that. And you get messages from us about that. That's why you get messages from us, because it's required through executive order. We have system-wide requirements such as the CHRS Common HR System, which Carrie is extremely familiar with, and her group and she are very responsible for making sure that gets implemented, as all the campuses have to implement that at some point. There's system-wide policies, and there's a number of those. Probably the most known right now is the vaccination policy. There's also the out-of-state policy, for instance, but there's a ton of other ones, probably dozens of other ones. So if you go in here, you can peruse those. And they don't all pertain to the employment situation, but many of them do. So we do keep track of those.
And Joanne, we had a question come in.
Yep.
Will SJSU be observing Juneteenth by closing the campus?
Okay, that's a great question, and I should have put that in here, but yeah, that's a great question. We've been getting some questions about that. So currently, Juneteenth is recognized by many states already, but not as a holiday. Federally, it is now being recognized as a federal holiday. Currently, there is a bill passing through the California legislature, which to make it a state holiday, a recognized state paid holiday, and things would close, right? But it's still working its way through. We hear from the Chancellor's office that they're monitoring that, and basically they're saying that while they expect it to be passed, not sure that's going to be passed for this year, in time for June of this year. Also, keep in mind that for anything that happens with that, as far as passage of that and implementing that, we would have to meet and confer with our unions. That's a term and condition of employment, a holiday. So for this year, not quite sure that's going to happen. Most likely it would be for next year. But again, we have to wait for passage through the legislature, the state legislature, and then we can proceed. Okay, next slide, please. Collective bargaining agreements and memorandums of understanding. So these are contracts negotiated between our system-wide CSU from the Chancellor's office. There's a bargaining team. And unions. And so the system-wide union people also bargain, also with members of campuses and with different representatives from the unions, but it's led by the system-wide groups. We have 7 unions on campus, 10 units. CSUEU has 4 units on campus. There's various provisions in each of these agreements, and they can all differ. For instance, the MOUs on the vaccination policy, several that you may have seen in some of the communications, there were different dates for different units. That's because of the timeline for the meet and confers that were happening. So some unions had an earlier deadline than others, and that's why. University policy as well. So some of these policies come from academic senate. An example of this is James is following the retention, tenure, and promotion policy in faculty services. There's also policy on selection of chairs and selection of administrators that are coming out of the academic senate, which get approved and signed by the president, and those become university policies. There are also SJSU presidential directives. Examples of these are time, place, and manner policy directive and smoke-free campus. The suspense is killing me. So how are procedures established? So from all these policies, we need to come up with procedures for things, right? So in the execution of our duties on behalf of San Jose State and the CSU system and in service to the employees, UP must operate within and remain compliant with all applicable laws, regulations, and mandates, system-wide executive orders and policies, CBAs and MOUs, and university policies and directives. So how do we establish these? Well, we talk a lot and we consult a lot, and we have guidance from various offices or from people. For instance, we get legal advice and guidance from the Office of General Counsel, located at the Chancellor's Office. We have an assigned General Counsel. Federal, state, and local agencies may also provide guidances. So State Controller's Office, Anita's group, payroll is very familiar with that agency. So they have certain ways that we need to do things, and they mandate certain things and calendars. CalPERS, that's another area that Anita's group is very familiar with. The benefits group is in liaison with that agency. CBAs and MOUs, they often have a process in the agreement or in a certain article, but there's also delegation of authority. So for instance, in the MOUs on vaccination policy for safety measures, it delegates authority to the campuses to determine safety measures. I know we've had questions about the vaccination policy and testing and masks. So a safety measure is required testing, for instance, for unvaccinated. And also some of the MOUs talk about that as well, delegate authority to the campuses to do those types of safety measures. So I have an example here from the CSU MOU. I think it's number 4. But you can look at this later too when you come in here on the PowerPoint. We can look at that later. Next one. So we also have system-wide subject matter groups. So we all participate in these, and the groups that pertain to our areas, right? So I participate in the HRO group. James is involved with faculty affairs, as is Rosa. There's the groups from the Chancellor's Office. There's a benefits group, class comp, payroll, DHR. DHR stands for discrimination, harassment, retaliation. That derives from executive order. So equal opportunity employee relations attends those. So there are various groups that we speak with and have guidance as well.
Joanne, we've had a couple of questions come in.
Okay.
Will the campus mask mandate be extended beyond fall term? And who is involved in deciding that?
Gosh, that was going to come up. But so yes, it's a good question, right? So I talked to you about the safety measure in the previous slide, right? So in the vaccination policy, once you're able to take a look at that again, it talks about safety measures delegated to the campus, right? So we have, and then also there was the county, Santa Clara County Department of Health, and then state, departments of health. So we're looking at those things. The president and the cabinet look at all of these things and to make determinations based on what's going on in the community for the masking in particular, and the safety measures that we want to put in place. And so we've tended to follow the county guidelines and local guidelines, but also just looking at our population and making determinations about what works best for us as a community. The mask mandate is in place until at least the end of this semester, which is fast approaching the end. And then there'll be a decision made, moving forward from there. And so you should be looking forward to hearing something more about that. And that would come from the president and the cabinet.
Thanks, Joanne.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Was there another one? I'm sorry, you said there was a couple. Or...
So the other one is a little bit off topic, but I'm going to go ahead and let you answer it, or maybe Anita could answer it. Are there any plans to provide annotations, explanation, or details in the direct deposit pay stubs to be able to understand what the payments are for and how they arrived, how we arrive at them? There we go, I can speak.
I can talk about that a little bit. So right now, Cal Employee Connect is where you'll be able to find the information regarding the pay that you're receiving. State Controller's Office has no plans at this time to go back to the direct deposit advices. So the best place for you to visit would be California Employee Connect. You'll register there. Payroll can help you. Your payroll rep can help you get the information you need to register. And again, that's where you can go to view all your pay that has issued. And you can also go there for your W-2s. So,
It's a great system, very well. I mean, it was thrilling for a lot of us on campus, and I know there were certain people involved in a sustainability committee who were very excited about, doing away with all the paper that was being sent. But I know definitely sign into this, and if you need certain information to register, talk to your payroll representative. It's a great system. It took a long time for the FCO to kind of get that up and running, but COVID really pushed that. And so we are, fortunate to have that. Your W-2s you can get that online. It's great. So you don't have to worry about the mail. But we'll put that in there. We'll add that link to the links that we send out on this one.
so I just sent the link in the chat box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Anita, I think yours only went to the hosts, but I put the link in the chat as well. So you should be able to get there. One way or the other, y'all can get there.
All right. I just sent it to everyone.
Thank you, Anita.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, some more ways that procedures are established and how we, the things that we communicated out to the community, they are coming from, a combination of all of these areas. So from system-wide policies, there's often procedures in them, and then tech letters come out. These describe the execution of policies, how we're supposed to process things. So a good example of that right now is processing GSIs and SSIs for the recently negotiated CFA CSU Unit 3 contract. So for any Unit 3 people who are on here or who are familiar with that contract, there were several items for pay that needed to be implemented. There's a GSI, there was an SSI, and there was a one-time payment. And that had to be prorated according to time base. So there's a lengthy tech letter on that. I thought I put the link in here, but I can put that in later. I think I updated it after Carrie had already set this up. So, but we'll get that tech letter out to you so you can see it. I think it's about 14 pages. There's all kinds of very technical things that we get sent that then we have to process. And so that leads us to certain procedures as well. And then we have policies and directives and presidential or cabinet determinations. These are also derived from various policies where there might be a process outline and there's delegation of authority. Again, just a good example is the vaccination policy regarding the safety measures. Very specifically states that the campuses are responsible or can make determinations on safety measures. So that's what the president and cabinet look to, and then make determinations about what those safety measures will be for our campus. And then we are to implement them. So that's the next step. So when the policies come through, then UP is in line to implement. So we are implementing the testing, for instance, the required testing. So that's how that kind of trickles down to us. And then it comes out to you. And then we let you know what needs to be done as far as the logistics of, for instance, the required testing for unvaccinated. How do you register for it? Where do you go? What do you do? And so those are the types of things that come down to us. Okay, so I wanted to move, I don't know if there's any questions coming in right now, Carrie, but I was going to move into the compensation area because that's an area that I know people are very interested in.
Actually, there was a follow-up question, Anita, maybe you can answer. It says that connect.sco, that link that you put, does not provide details, only pay stubs and earnings. Are they missing something? I think what they're looking for is like, what is this particular fee? What is that? This may be something that maybe they should contact their payroll rep about. Is that right, Anita?
That's correct. Yeah, if you have questions about pay that you're receiving that's not your typical master pay, then I would contact your payroll representative and they'll let you know what that pay represents.
Okay. That sounds great. We did have one more question. I think you might be getting to it, Joanne, but I'll go ahead and ask it.
Yep.
Where can I find information on pay grades and learn more about how I can get to the next pay grade from where I am currently?
All right, we're going to touch on that a little bit coming up. So if you can just hold on that one for a minute, and we should have some. And then there's a follow-up on that one. We can look at that if it doesn't answer your question here. So if we move into compensation, again, this was, so again, looking at people's questions and comments coming in as people registered. Compensation is, it's way high up there on people's concerns, and rightly so. So we'll touch on some things on compensation. Hopefully these can help people understand, how this comes about, where we're at with it. I know there's some questions about the recent, salary study that's been conducted. So to start with, how are salaries established? Well, there's a CSU salary schedule, and there's a salary schedule with salary ranges for different positions, classifications and level of work. So I did put the link in here for the CSU salary schedule. CBAs talk about salaries and GSIs and SSIs and maybe one-time payments, bonuses, stipends. There's various things in the CBAs. There's parity and equity and sometimes market, which come into play as far as like when things happen in various areas and classifications. There's a review of like where people should be sitting, an equitable relationship to other people in similar classifications. And then there's always the budget concerns as well. Next slide, please. So one of the questions that was repeated a few times, and this is definitely top of mind for many people, many of us, right? Cost of living in this area is extremely high, probably the highest in California and actually maybe the country. So the geographic differentials is a concern to people. So I did want to let people know that it does get talked about. Unit 1, actually, UAPD, the positions, that they actually have geographic differentials in their collective bargaining agreement. Do you want to go into that link real quick, Carrie? Because I just wanted to show where San Jose State sits there. So if you look at this first page, you go down, you'll see that, yeah, thanks. If you see how they're all the same until you get to the Bay Area. There's East Bay, San Francisco, and San Jose. So San Jose is the highest right here, right? It's recognized as the highest place. So you'll see there's for that first column, for the minimum for this particular position, there's a bit of difference there, almost $1,000 difference, or no, actually more than $1,000 between kind of the base that most campuses are getting and what the differential is. So there is, discussion on that. You can go back to the slides, but there is discussion on that. I know, my understanding is that there's been discussion during bargaining with other unions as well to, address these. But this is the only one that has it in there currently in the CBA. So some questions that came in. Why doesn't UP advocate to the CSUCA for a higher wage based on the area we live in? So when I talked about those meetings that we have system-wide, so people do, put their input in it and their opinions. And so I'm pretty sure the CEO is very well aware of the high cost of living in San Jose. So it's not that they're not aware, but they bargain the contracts. So UP is not involved. We do not lead bargaining. We might participate or give our opinions on it, but we don't do the actual bargaining. What are UP's plans to help increase staff salaries to a livable wage? Well, we are available to discuss your concerns in departments and options in the process with departments. If there's equity issues, we can certainly, help talk about that, facilitate discussion about that. So we do, provide assistance to departments who are looking at that and wondering about compression and inversion and that type of thing. So please, managers can reach out to us, supervisors can reach out to us and discuss that. And also if employees, some of the CBAs provide for situations where employees can make requests for IRPs. And so if there's questions about the process there, do reach out to us. Next slide, please.
Joanne, we did have one question. Can you talk about parity and equity and whether salary inversion can be proactively addressed?
So, I mean, it's often a case-by-case basis, right? So we have to, let's just understand what the situation is. Generally, we want to make sure that people are equitably paid. So if there's a situation where you see it as, cost of living and wages go up, right? So you see, like somebody's newly hired, they might have a higher salary than somebody who's been at San Jose State for a while. So we want to look at equity, right? We want to see how that equitably, sits with other people who may have been here longer or in that classification, like where should they be? So we do those types of reviews, and we want to do those types of reviews. So if we can have that brought to our attention, we would certainly look at that.
Thanks, Joanne. I think that was the last one.
Okay. I just wanted to present some numbers too. I guess I'll put some other links in here, like when this PowerPoint is posted, because I think I put some other links in here too. But anyway, some of the numbers that may be of interest to people just to know what's happening, what we're processing. So these are some IRP requests since September. There's been 70 and we processed 60 since then. Just to let you know too, we have one person working on our class comp right now. So UP, like many other departments across campus, we have also had our challenges with filling positions. We had a person who was in line to come on board to be the second person to be working on class comp, but she was offered a higher paid position in a local government somewhere. I can't remember the town, but very nearby, and so we lost her to that municipality. But anyways, we had one person working on this, and he works diligently. Tony Garcia, he's our manager of class comp and recruitment. So he, has worked through these, and just to show you our percentage rate of IRPs have been improved. There's 88%. There's been 47 classification requests since September. 35 have been processed. There's a 91% approval rate. We've also had stipends and bonuses processed, 165 since September. So these requests are coming in and recognizing extra work that people are doing, responsibilities that people are taking on. I think, again, like when I went back in later, probably after Carrie had posted this to the web here, it's interesting to see in the CBAs, just to point out, the CBAs have various articles on salary, right? So some of them have different ways of doing the IRPs. So we have to follow the procedures of the IRPs for those particular CBAs. Just wanted to mention that too. So you might see different processes in CBAs for different units.
Joanne, we've got quite a few questions that have come in.
Okay.
So I'll just start here. When reviewing salary equity or parity, does UP look at the classification across the campus or only in the department or the college? If it's not across the campus, there may be inequity in the same classification in other divisions or colleges that are never addressed. Can the employee ask for an equity review across campus for their classification?
Would you read that last sentence again? I'm sorry, I started talking before you finished.
Can the employee ask for an equity review across campus for their classification?
You can. I mean, I think that we want to try to move to where we have parity amongst classifications throughout, because we do recognize that there may be certain divisions that I'm just going to say have more money than others, right? Or have maybe historically been paid less for whatever reason. So we do want to make sure that people feel that their classifications are being recognized for the work that they're doing. If it's similar work, we want to try to work with these areas to make sure that we have some equity across not only the division, but across campus as well. So that is a goal that I'd like to work towards and have us work towards. So I hope that is responsive.
Thanks, Joanne. Someone said they were told that they shouldn't expect their request for an IR increase. I assume that means IRP increase to go through, even though they deserved it. It was disheartening, and they're wondering if the process is being updated.
I don't know. Maybe that would be something that if somebody feels comfortable reaching out to me to talk to me, because I don't know who you're referencing, if it's somebody in UP who's telling you that, or if it's somebody in your own area who's telling you that. But there's certainly most of the IRPs, provisions for IRPs, the employee is allowed to submit an IRP, right, based on what they believe that they're doing. So I'm not sure who would have said that or told somebody that. But maybe has to do with the level of work, or so I'm not sure in what context that was stated. But we do follow the processes that we have, mostly derived from the CBAs for these particular issues.
Okay. Oh. What is the process for a manager to address their own compensation when there is compression in the department? Staff continues to receive IRPs and are now very close to the manager's salary. And there was another question about, can an MPP ask for an equity review?
Mm-hmm. I would certainly speak with the immediate supervisor there. If MPP reports to like an AVP or a VP, that's something, a conversation that can be had for sure, and to put through for equity. And I just wanted to, there's gonna be another slide too. There were questions about like when MPPs might see merit increase, because there had in the past, pre-COVID, right? There were typically each July, there was a pool of funds made available from the Chancellor's office where MPPs might receive a merit increase. Wasn't received in 2020, wasn't received in 2021. We have not heard anything about 2022 at this point, but we certainly would communicate that out, if we heard that. Maybe we should go to the next slide, because there are some items on that too, just as far as like, here we go, yep. Our staff going to get a cost of living salary increase. I've not seen a pay increase since 2019, despite earning exceeds expectation rates in my performance evaluations. When my MPPs and other staff expect to see raises. So I did want to mention, I mentioned that the CFA and CSU just completed bargaining. So there was GSIs and SSIs and some one-time payments there. Right now, CSU EU and the Teamsters are in bargaining with system-wide. If you recall, back in 2020, those contracts were due to expire in 2020, but there were extensions because of COVID and everything that was happening there. But those are in negotiation right now. So whether typically salary and that compensation is discussed, that's one of the big topics, if not the biggest topic. So as things progress there, we may very well have some news about that. For the MPPs, as mentioned, we have not heard anything at this point about any kind of merit increase for MPPs, for this summer. But if we do hear something, we would certainly let campus know. I was going to bring up too the system comprehensive salary study. I think many people are aware of this, and people may have participated in focus groups for this, because the consultants did, ask for participation from employees, from MPPs, from staff members about compensation. This was funded. This was done in conjunction with the CSU and Teamsters and CSU EU. So there was a collaborative effort here. The funding came from the state for this independent evaluation of the salary structure. This is for non-faculty staff. And just to let you know, too, the implementation requires funding from the state, because there were recommendations made. Geographic differentials were taken into account. There were recommendations about a salary step model. They addressed issues of compression. They looked at market benchmarks and, again, geographic differentials. So I think at this point in time, it comes down to what the state will be, is willing to budget for and willing to pay for, because it would be a high cost for one-time funding and then ongoing funding. So that remains to be seen. I know that's in progress. Again, as news comes out about that, that will be, communicated to campuses.
Okay, there's still quite a few compensation questions. Let me see here. If we requested a reclassification with our supervisor, what is the appropriate time to get a response back?
There's a certain deadline, as talked about in the CBAs, and maybe Julie, Tony I know is probably in the audience, but I don't see him on here. So Julie, is it 90 days typically?
It depends. It depends on where they're at, what part of the process they're at, if it's with a supervisor. So I would suggest that person reach out to Tony or myself, just so that we can give them the appropriate answer to those questions.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. There was a question about, are the equity studies done only within a college, or are they done campus-wide?
That's a similar question to, I think, a couple of questions ago, right? So I think it's important. I mean, I'd like to move to more of, and I want, we're trying to move more into this. What are the classifications doing across campus? Because I think that's a fair way to look at it, right? If there's similar work being performed within the classifications at a certain level, then that should be reviewed across the board, because the work level, it's being performed, and it shouldn't really matter if it's done in one division or another, right? It should be, what are people doing, and what are people being paid for the work that they're doing, and paid for that classification and that amount of work. So that's where we want to be moving towards.
So just to further expand upon that, we have been looking at the campus and we'll just say, let's say an admin analyst, not exempt. And we'll look at the other colleges and we'll see the, where we're landed at. There are some salaries that are so high that there is no way we could move everyone to that level if they have the same experience. So, Tony has been doing a really good job and not just looking at what's in your college, but also what's going on across the campus. But when you have an admin analyst that's making 50K a year and an admin analyst making 90K a year, there is that is a wide gap that departments, divisions, colleges aren't able to meet right now. So we are starting to really look at that and figure out how we can close those gaps.
Yeah. Also just want to mention, because I don't think I mentioned this either in the how salaries are set, but San Jose, again, is one of the areas that, high cost area, right? So we can also look at other campuses, maybe similar sized campuses, and see what's going on there as well. So that's just another area where we look, because I forgot to mention that earlier. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Okay, we had a question. What is the reason for UP lowering a grade level if the supervisor who submitted a higher grade level for the position description?
So I'd have to have more information about, it sounds like a very specific situation, but that's Julie. Julie just popped on, so maybe she has an answer.
So although the appearance to a supervisor may be that it's a higher level, we look at the job duties across the campus to ensure that we are leveling. Just because you're doing more of the same duty does not necessarily mean that it equates to a higher level. So we look at not only the duties, the responsibilities, the knowledge to do those duties, and we make we look at it from a viewpoint of more of what's going on in the campus, where you may be looking at just what's going on in your division. I do think it's important for you to talk to us. There has been an occasion where somebody put in duties and they were confidential, and then as they changed, the duties changed, it was changed to a CSUEU position because of the duties. So we're not arbitrary about changing that. We look at what the duties are and the percentage of time of those duties.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, I think that's it for now.
Okay. Oh, here we are. So we have about 14 minutes left, but there was a few things just when I was looking back at the questions that came through, just a couple things that, stood out to what people have been talking about. So there was comments on forms and talking about UP making sure that the communication about changes in forms is thoroughly communicated out, so people aren't surprised by new forms or still using the old forms. So we will look at that and work on that. The I-9 process was also a topic that came up a bit. I know that with the implementation of CHRS recruiting, the I-9 tracker came into play last fall. It was really difficult in Academic Affairs Division in particular, because of just trying to get that new process underway. We are working on streamlining that, and we have set aside an area. We're dedicating an area to that process in particular. So I'm pretty confident that you're going to see some improvement in that this year, as far as particularly for the hiring of lecturers. I did see a question that caught my eye. It said, why does SJSU discriminate against veterans? I don't know the details of that. I would not say that that's a policy or practice that we advocate. And I did want to make sure that people saw, I can see if I can drop this in the chat, but the link to the Equal Opportunity site, where if there's there is concern about discrimination, I want to make sure that the individual had the link. And if they wanted to talk to somebody or needed to file something, to be able to see that, make sure I can do this to everybody. So I'm putting the link in the chat.
So there is a concern about veterans points. Our state of California, the CSU, does not provide veterans points. That's not SJSU's decision. That's a CSU decision. Usually when you have Veterans Point, there's a merit system and it's very, very strict on how they do it. So we have heard concerns about that. That's not necessarily discrimination, but we are more than welcome, open to talking to you about any concerns that you may have as a veteran working with us.
Thank you. And then there are comments on 360 evaluations and being able to participate in those. And I want to let you know that we are embarking on those for confidential employees and MPPs. This means that there will be more input from those working directly with these individuals, including direct reports. So there are comments from people who would want to participate in those types of evaluations. So we are working on that. There were several comments about the recruitment process and asking that we look at that and help to streamline that. So we will take a look at that. And I know that's on a lot of people's minds because of the fact that we're trying to constantly fill slots, and people want to make sure that they're timely with getting forms filled out and with search committees and getting things done so that we can hire the best people for the positions and fill our positions. Somebody asked about a change of address, if that could be done online. And actually, yes, that can be. You go to self-service in your SGSU1, go to work online. I know Carrie might be able to pull that up, but you can definitely do that online. So that is available to you. She's going to pull it up right now.
Actually, if you go to one SGSU and you search for address, you can find change my address and other info. It's actually done on the My SGSU side right now. So if you click on that, it will you'll get here and you can click start. It'll take you right into PeopleSoft and you can change your address there. I'm not going to open it because I don't need you to see my address, but that's how you would do it. You can make that a favorite by clicking the little heart, and then you'll be able to easily get to that from one.sgsu. So again, that is done on the My SGSU side, not in SGSU work right now.
Gotcha. Thank you. I do. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, we've got a couple of other questions that have come in, Joanne. Let me flip back over here. Is there an official UP sponsored scheduling program or software that is in use campus wide, for example, for student employee use? I don't think we have anything like that, but maybe Anita knows about like managing shift times and availability. I don't think we have anything like that I'm aware of, but Anita, do you?
That I'm aware of.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think we had anything like that. That would probably be a good question for IT.
Yeah.
Just if they have anything they could offer you.
Yeah.
There was a question about what is the breakdown by unit for the IRP stats? Is that something that they should contact Tony or you about, Julie? If they want more information on those stats for IRPs?
Yeah, they can, either one, they can contact us, and we're not going to provide that to just anyone. So it depends on what you need it for. And I mean, that's going to take us a little bit of time to pull together. So definitely they can ask for the information and we'll try to look into it, but if we don't have it readily.
Thanks, Julie. Whoops, my mouse is a little crazy, sorry. There was a question that said, so UP can override the direct management chain with respect to compensation?
It's not that we override it. We provide them information on what we believe that the actual duties should be compensated at. We typically give them a range. If it's going to be out of the range of what we believe that is appropriate for the position, it's not that we override them. We tell them the amount that we give them. So if we say, yes, it's an increase of 500 to 2,000, they can select anything in that range, for example. If there is something significant where the director or the manager says that they believe it should be rated, given more, more money for, we have a discussion. At that point, it'll come to myself. If we still can't settle on something, it'll go to Joanne. But we look at compensation not based on an individual, but based on the duties of which they're doing and across the campus and also across the CSU.
Right. And that's where the equity review comes into parity, right? So that we touched on. So, manager may say they want to give a certain amount, but upon review, those requests that come in, the forms, there's a request to review. Those are requests to review only, basically. And then there's, manager might put in, this is what I'd like to see. I'm thinking this, right? But the review has to go through, class comp. And so Tony takes a look at that. And, he's been doing this for a long time and has a lot of expertise on this. He talks to system-wide on, the methodologies and looks at, equity and looks across the system, looks across the campus, and, evaluates it based on those criteria. So it may not be in line, the manager is looking at something different and Tony's looking at all these different elements, right? So we have about 6 more minutes. I just wanted to again reiterate the vaccination policy, because I know there were some couple questions on that, just to make sure that I've stated that clearly. The vaccination policy, we are in process still of, and there's, again, I mentioned how there's different dates for different unions. So for instance, I believe it's APC Unit 4, they just had a deadline of May 13th, which is Friday. So we probably will be in touch with those who are not non-compliant. This is for the booster. So please, if you have the booster, just please enter it into the system and we won't bother you anymore on that. But that's something that we will be reaching out to for people who are not compliant as of yet. There is required testing for unvaccinated as a safety measure, but there's going to be a pause, and people who are in that protocol will receive notification of the pause for a couple of weeks, because we're changing slightly the way we're doing that. So there will be more information for people to understand what they need to do next on that. So look for that. You can probably communicate with this week about just the pause, and then you'll see additional information coming within the next 2 weeks. Again, for the mask mandate, that is in place until at least the end of this semester, again, which is fast approaching, end of May. By that time, you will have heard whether there's going to be a continuation of it or whether it's lifted. And that will come from the president and the cabinet making that determination, and it will be communicated out to everyone to let people know, how we are proceeding. So I wanted to mention that. Were there any other questions coming through, Carrie, that we should?
Yeah, there's, I think there's one more here that's probably for Anita. Will UP add more times when we can pick up paychecks? In the past, there were 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Now there's only 1 hour in the morning.
We're actually, excuse me, we're actually meeting about that as more people return to campus, about adding the second pickup time. So once that changes, we'll put out an announcement to the authorized folks that are allowed to come over and pick up checks.
Thanks, Anita.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that's everything we've got so far.
Okay.
Julie, I think there might be one that you might want to address privately in here. I think it's more specific, so it's probably just easier to go one-on-one.
Okay.
But I think that's it. We have a few
right.
people that have thanked us for doing the session, and I think our goal is to do these a few times a year, right, Joanne?
Yeah, so if this is helpful, and we appreciate your comments, let us know what you think. Again, my door is open. I respond to emails, phone calls, set up meetings. If you want to talk about anything or constructive criticism, I'm very open to that. So we're planning to do this quarterly, at least, this as another way to communicate out to constituents and to provide information. We kind of did that, who we are, what we are, but we'll deal more directly with other topics as we move forward. I know, like I said, the recruitment process seemed to come up a bit in the comments and questions, and that's a big thing on everybody's mind, in addition to compensation, which seems to be the top concern that people are expressing. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and hope this has been helpful. And see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.